Hey everybody, Fabian from Kaizen Softworks here. Welcome to the Kaizen Podcast. Thanks for coming. The Kaizen Podcast is produced every 2 weeks for your enjoyment. Show notes and links are found at podcast.kcsoftworks.com. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed, iTunes, Stitch, and Spotify. You can also follow me on Twitter at KCFabi. Now, let's get into the show. You're listening to episode number 4. Today we are talking about why big names like the Chicago Bulls, Boston Celtics, Charlotte Hornets, and the Cleveland Cavaliers are using UruIT's product name Hurrah, a sales leaderboard. UruIT is a nearshore outsourcing company with 10 years in the industry, but how do they reinvent themselves to stay relevant? What is UruIT all about? To answer these questions and many more, I'm here today with Marcelo Lopez. He is the co-founder of UruIT and a longtime friend in this industry. So welcome to the show, Marcelo.
Oh, thank you, Fabi.
All right, so would you like to introduce yourself to the audience? Give us a little bit about you, your background, what did you study, what is your current job in general terms?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I am 38 years old, and I have a computer science degree in terms of background. And 2 years ago, we also went to Columbia University in New York with the help of the innovation agency in Uruguay. So at that time, we went through some management training. It was kind of new for us. So we started the company without any management training at all and mostly technical know-how. And nowadays, I spend most of my time with UruIT, which is a core business, but I am also a member of the board at a couple of startups and another 2 spin-off companies that we have. So it's been a busy time the past 10 years, but so far so good.
Okay, cool. And you said you are a member of the board of many startups. Are they only from Uruguay or also from other countries?
No, from Uruguay. So we co-created one company with another 2 colleagues or companies in Uruguay. Mm-hmm. We call it Connexio Group. Okay. And that company is focused on building portals with Adobe content management platform, working for agencies in the States. Excellent. So that is one example. And then we are now starting, and then we have our own spin-off companies that, like the product that you mentioned, mm-hmm. but also we are now trying to try this, how to help startups in Uruguay. And we are going through our first initiatives there. And I will tell you more in a few months how it goes.
Excellent. All right, so I want to start with something that it's kind of a game mm-hmm. that I call Guess the Year, kind of mm-hmm. something to break the ice, all right? Sure. So you have to guess the year. Uh-huh. So I'm asking, in which year was outsourcing formally identified as a business strategy?
Oh.
You have to guess. You don't have to know.
Wow. Outsourcing itself, I don't know, in the early 90s?
Early 90s, a little earlier.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But almost there.
Almost there?
Yeah, it was 89.
Oh, okay.
So according to a research by the North Carolina State University, outsourcing was not formally identified as a business strategy until 1989. Mm-hmm. By that time, most organizations outsource those functions for which they don't have no competency internally at all. Mm-hmm. I will leave in the show notes a link to the post where they describe all this and a brief history of outsourcing.
That's interesting. Okay,
yeah,
I want to learn about that too.
So let's move into the topic of today. Mm-hmm. But for that, I want to kind of like give an introduction to outsourcing mm-hmm. and the industry. So which do you think are the reasons that make companies today to outsource their work?
Okay, sure. So I think there are many factors that can get a company to try outsourcing or to do outsourcing. I have seen that in most of the cases it's very cost oriented. So mm-hmm. Companies that are willing to reduce costs of in our case, like building a piece of software or eventually also the ones that we also found the ones that are willing to focus in the core business at some point in the core product, and they might have other apps that they want to build or to try. And I have seen also that some companies that are looking for outsourcing to deal with that. And the other reason, obviously, is the lack of resources and the lack of talent. The skills. Sometimes they might look for some partner that has some specific skills, and they are willing to leverage those skills when they don't have it in-house, or when they don't have the opportunity to bring those skills in-house, because I don't know, we have clients that are competing for talent with Facebook, with big names, and it is really hard for them to get talent in their specific locations. So it's a combination sometimes of everything, and yeah, we have this outsourcing trend that is gaining population over time, and in particular, I have seen Latin America growing also in that sense compared to other locations.
In the last years, right?
Yeah, in the last few years actually. So last year we were at this conference in Google actually that was about outsourcing, and we see and they reported this trend about India going down a little bit, and Latin America gaining more traction. So I think there is a huge opportunity in particular for Latin America to get more market share on that.
Cool.
And it's and companies in the US still needs to learn more about what we could offer in Latin America. So I think this type of communication and this type of things that you are doing right now to promote it, I think we need more of that actually.
We will go back to the India going down in the ITO business, but I want to ask a few questions before that. Going back to why companies outsource and all that, are we talking about that any size of company can outsource, or is it better just for startups or just for corporations, small, mid-sized
Good question.
business?
No, I think it applies to everyone. I mean, and everyone will have different needs maybe, and also different motivations to do outsourcing. But in our case, for instance, we have been working a lot with startups in the past few years, but also established companies and even Fortune 100 companies have outsourced some work to us in the past. So I think everyone can benefit of outsourcing. The goals and the pains that they might have that will, why they are doing outsourcing might be a little bit different, and also the type of services that they will require in each stage, it will change a little bit. But I think we in our case we can offer something to any of those. So I think anyone can benefit from outsourcing.
Do you think there's any negative impact for a company that outsources part or all of their software?
Negative? I mean, sometimes they are afraid that they are losing kind of the control or the IP in some cases. And this is why we see a trend also that whenever they have the possibility to bring some talent in-house, they prefer to do that and work with a combination of nearshore or offshore resources along with their in-house ones. So but anyway, with today's tools that are available, I think that is not a huge risk right now. They can access the code at any time, and they can access the application environments are in the cloud. So I think they are gaining control, but I have identified that as a risk that we need to mitigate in our pre-sale calls, for instance. But rather than that, I think it's they can, if they do the right research and they find the right partner, I think that they can overcome such fears. And it's a matter of building this partnership with them, and at the end they will benefit more of the partnership that the actual risks or problems that they might face.
Another part of the puzzle might be building a good agreement that protects the IP of the company.
For sure, yes. I mean, that is a very important piece of the negotiation, and in most of the cases, if the client is a mature company, probably you will end up dealing with legal, with procurement, with security, and we have gone in the past. For instance, we have gone through several security audits, for instance, and that needs to be reflected in the right paperwork. So yes, NDAs, MSAs, and in particular signing or reflecting those contracts with our people and our employees and our contractors is also part of the game there, along with working with the right insurance policies and everything. So for companies like us that are we have been dealing with this type of international business in the past. I think we were able to develop this type of assets and know-how, and at the end it will for sure reduce the risk for the clients. But yes, it is part also of the due diligence that they need to do, but I think it's part of the game for sure.
Right. You said something about like choosing the right partner, I think. So what should a company look into outsource, evaluate from their software outsourcing partner?
Oh, good one. Yeah, I mean, we treat every new client as a partnership, and we encourage them to make as much questions as they can, and we try to minimize the risks and to make sure that they are, as we call it, the right fit for us, and also that we are the right fit for them. And I think this is part of a research that every company needs to do, and there are many things that they typically look when they get to us or get to know us. In particular, in terms of understanding the engagement process, and there are different, as I say, different companies in different stages with different needs, and not every company or every partner or every vendor will fit with those. And in particular, to understand what are the interests of the vendor, and to try to align that with the strategy of the client. I think that is the engagement. I think is very important for us, and to make sure how the teams will collaborate and what they expect from the relationship. And we like to be very upfront and to tell them what they will find on us, and if we are not the right partner, we will let them know. So I think that is very important. And we have found also that it's better when they can like meet the counterpart. You can meet in person, for instance, during a trip, or when they come down here and visit us. We encourage them to have this close relationship with the vendor. So we have found that it's a small investment compared to what you get from that. And so I think that getting to know the other vendor, of course, you have all the checks that you need to do in terms of the technology. They typically challenge us with some coding challenges, interviews, and everything. But at the end, I think is how you can structure this partnership and to be beneficial for both parties. And typically that requires more discussions about that type of goals, I think.
So I found in UruIT's blog a blog post that is a really good one, I think, that compares offshore with nearshore and onshore. Would you briefly tell the audience what's the difference between these three?
Oh yes. So offshore, in particular, as you say, what is motivating a company to do some outsourcing? When they decide to do outsourcing, they have different options. They could go with a local partner, even a next door partner, or a partner that is located in the same region. In particular, we call it onshoring, to the practice of outsourcing to a nearby vendor that might be in our case, our market is the States. So any company outsourcing to a local US development company is what we call the onshoring practice. And obviously that has some advantages, that they identify that they outsource to someone that is located inside the same borders and the same culture. Eventually they might be ending up working remotely from other states, but it's they engage with them as with a local vendor. And then when they decide to go beyond borders, they have two options. They could go offshore, And in this case, when we talk about outsourcing from the States, it's typically about outsourcing to India or outsourcing to Asia, or nowadays is Europe is very hot. And the other option is, we call it Nearshore, when they go to a nearby country. In our case, it's Latin America mainly. And the advantages of doing that is basically, compared to the offshore, is a time zone for sure, and also the communication and everything, how you can improve that by being closer, and the travel distance and everything is much easier. And I think this is one of the things that is, why Latin America is getting traction in the nearshoring, in the outsourcing to the nearshore market. And compared to the onshore outsourcing, I think nearshore is quite similar. Obviously, it's a different country that you outsource to, but the cultures are quite similar compared to the States. And we have found that we can deliver almost the same quality in terms of software and coding and best practices. We are pretty aligned, and we use the same tools. We get access to a very high level of education here in Latin America. We have great universities, and so we even had a client once in Kansas City that was outsourcing part of the work to a local vendor, and actually that was a big development shop that at the end was doing the work from Las Vegas, and they were working side by side with us in the project, and we were working from our offices in Montevideo and in Medellin. And the client was saying, hey, I get the same quality, and I am paying 3 or 4 times more to this local vendor, and they are working remote anyway.
There's no difference.
So why? Yeah, it doesn't make any difference. Obviously, they ended up going, letting them go and going with us for the entire development. So this is what I am trying to tell the clients, that we are like, you would be outsourcing to a company that is going to be working like from another state, if you will, because we work from the same time zone, EST or CST in our case, depending on the branch. So the communication and the culture, and when they are able to travel down and meet face to face with the development team, you create this connection with the team. So we are in this situation of being able to deliver the same quality of the onshore at a fraction of the price or the cost. So it makes total sense for companies to try it. So
you earlier said that as part of the partner selection for a company looking to outsource, meeting in person was important, but you recently just said that meeting with the team in person is also important. So besides working remotely, how many times do you think these relationships should met in person, or going to the States or coming to Uruguay? Is that because you try to build trust, or
that is a big component on that? And as I say, we recommend the partners to consider us as partners rather than vendors, and to also we try to build this partnership, and to do that they treat us as an extension of their teams, and we recommend that face-to-face meetings to happen, because you end up knowing the persons behind the video conference. Nowadays we do a lot of video conference all the day, but anyway, meeting, going out for beers and enjoying
do other stuff than coding,
exactly.
Right?
So whenever we travel or they come down here, we spend a week or so doing more than work, and I think that is very important. And at the end, you understand who the goals and the personal goals, and who is behind that. And in terms of how many times, typically it's one time per year at least. If the team is big enough, they might be coming down a couple of times every year. We have seen that happening a lot with our Colombian branch, because it's quite nearby. And but we get the clients, they share with us the goals for the year, they align us on the goals for each product. So I think that is very important to have those strategic discussions with the team, so they feel engaged and they feel as part of something, and not just coders or people taking taking notes from somewhere else. So we do recommend that, and we even have written a lot about it.
Good. I will leave the link to the blog post of UruIT on the show notes too. So today we were talking about India losing some part of the business, and I want to say that India has been for years the outsourcing destination paradise, probably. But several, if not most, of the companies that outsource their work to that destination from the United States, I think they learned the hard way, because in recent years you can see that a high volume of articles everywhere are being written about how outsourcing destinations are shifting to China and other small countries of Asia, or even to South America, right? So yeah, even in 2017, I found an article from 2017 that the CEO of TCS said that we had a tough year.
Interesting.
So what do you think are the reasons of these changes? I think we said a couple, you said a couple today, like the time zone alignment, the similar culture. So are there any other advantages of outsourcing to South America versus India or other Asian countries?
Yes, I mean, I think India obviously has some great talent available, and you see that, many CEOs of big companies in the States are from India. So definitely they have a great talent there, and they have great availability. But I think that at the very beginning it was more like, a cost saving thing that they started to do outsourcing to India. And nowadays that is not the only reason, as I say, to outsource. And I can tell because I started working in TCS, which is one of the largest Indian vendors. And I learned there a lot about quality, about process. And actually during this scholarship that we did at Columbia University, we went to India, and we were able to be in TCS and other companies there. And we realized, how important the culture is, and that they have this compromise with the job and the work that it's hard to understand, and that at the end, I think that they are able to. They have some great talent, but at the same time they have been growing quite fast, and maybe the quality has been compromised a little bit. And we have found many clients that are not willing to pay that. I mean, and they prefer to go with a more expensive option, but where quality is very important. So we took many projects that were originally built in India 10 years ago, and nowadays we are refactoring, and we were like rebuilding everything almost. And when we ask the clients, they say, okay, yes, it was a very cost-effective approach, but for most of the business, it doesn't make sense to outsource to when you have such a time zone problem. And also they reported to us that it is much easier to engage and to communicate with Latin America because the culture is quite similar, as I said. And so when they consider that, I think at the end they prefer to pay a little bit more and not compare only like hourly rates. And for those companies that are also like doing a lot of agile development, it just doesn't make sense. Even though if the vendors in Asia or India work in night shift, because they need to do that, to overlap, and they find that at the end it doesn't make sense to have people working at night, and it doesn't make sense to. Last week I had a conversation with a potential client, and he was saying, I want to get out from my outsourcing to India because my manager is wake up at night or at midnight, trying to fix things and discuss with the Indian team, and so at the end it won't work. Maybe for some type of services when you can outsource, some requirements or some maintenance, it is great because You basically next day you get the results. But for this truly agile engagement model, as we typically do with the states companies, I think it doesn't make sense for them.
Right. Okay. So now let's move into UruIT. Can you give us a brief introduction of the company?
Okay, yeah. So UruIT started 10 years ago, and we used with my business partner. We used to be developers, and in particular with Microsoft technologies, and working in TCS. So we met there, and we learned a lot about how to do, this. We helped TCS to ramp up the teams here in Uruguay, and at that time, that was like 15 years ago. It was the first branch they had in Latin America to serve the U.S. market. So we learned a lot. We were used to work with U.S. companies, and we spent time working on site in the States, in Motorola, American Express. So this is how we got into this nearshoring model, and we learned how to work remote for clients. At that time, it was kind of not a new thing, but not everyone was doing as today, and
Right.
the communication channels and everything was different 15 years ago.
And how many founders are you?
We are two founders,
Two founders.
and then we had the spin-off companies with other shareholders. And so we started in thinking about how we could build this the same concept but at a different scale. So we wanted something that was more like a boutique shop and focusing more on the quality and everything. And this is how we started, and we were lucky that at that point we were connected also with Microsoft services in Chile, and this is how we started exporting services to Microsoft and then to Microsoft clients. But we had this goal of work with the States and focus on the US market, and this is how we started doing some attending some conferences and doing some online marketing to showcase what we could do. And 6 months later, we were getting some clients visiting us here in our barbecue.
Cool.
We started in the barbecue of my co-founder, and
Cool.
so it was kind of a great start for us. And I think that focus on the quality, we try to stick to that even today. And we had the opportunity to grow faster for sure, but we decided to stay smaller and not compromising the quality that much.
How many people are you?
Right now at UruIT core business, we are probably around 80 or
80.
so, yeah, including software engineers mostly, but some UX UI folks and many product management roles, Scrum Masters, product owners. And then within the other groups, the other companies that we have in the group, we are probably 130 or so in total.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been good.
What kind of services do you offer at UruIT?
Well, it depends. Right now, we do mostly custom software development for companies in the States. What is included in that service depends on the stage of the company. So we have companies that are requiring what we call the end-to-end solution, and in that case, we do the development, but also the UX UI part, and we also do the product management part. And in other cases, when the company is mature enough, they probably have some in-house talent, and so we do co-development with them, and we basically offer them engineers to work from our offices, working side by side with them. So in terms of services, that is what we do, mostly web applications, and the past couple of years we have been getting into mobile too, machine learning, some blockchain. So it's the technology stack changes depending on the client.
Now, the following is one of the opening questions I made when we started recording this podcast. So, how UruIT, a niche outsourcing company with 10 years in the industry, has been able to reinvent itself to stay relevant and keep in business?
That's a good one. I think that is part of as a co-founder, you need to stay relevant, and you need to stay in movement. So we are always looking for opportunities to expand either the capabilities, the offices, the technologies, the services, And every year we basically decide where to invest. And to do that, we rely on the quality of the people we have, obviously. And we are very open about listening to their goals. So last year, for instance, we decided to go with mobile, in particular with Xamarin, because someone was interested in learning about that. It did happen the same when we got into CRM, or nowadays when we got into machine learning. So we try to align that those interests from our people with what we see at the market, and obviously having this presence in the States, and to get into conferences to see what is going on is very important. And to be honest, I think a very important thing that we have been lucky kind of was the type of clients that we were getting all the time, or we get all the time. They are pushing us to innovate and to stay ahead of the technology, and to stay updated. So we are very lucky, I think, that whenever there is a new technology, we get someone interested on us, either learning about it, or trusting on us because we already know it. So I think that is we were able to combine that, our interests, our goals, the market, and also the clients pushing for that are very important. So we were able to do some blockchain work when that was still not so well known, or we are now going through some machine learning stuff, and we have clients supporting us on some new technology. So it's really tricky or really hard to stay up to date with all the changes that are happening. So you need to be very picky, and I think that is part of what we do is to try to invest the time and money into things that might work in the near future, or in the next few years at least. Obviously, at in some cases it didn't work out, so it's really hard. But you need to we plan every year where we are investing our time and money, and we prefer to review it every quarter rather than every year, because opportunities will arise almost every day here.
This industry changes all the time.
A lot, quite a lot, yeah.
And does it take you too much time to invest in those decisions? Do you also involve, you said you take a look into the goals of your people and try to align that with your business objectives? Do you see it all together and decide what to do?
It's a natural process, I think, and a lot of input comes from our marketing activities. And as I said, we like to sponsor conferences and attend conferences there, and we listen to some hot technology that everyone is using there, and we try to offer that internally, or do some proof of concept. And typically, because I think that the engineers are always willing to learn something new, so I think it is pretty easy to align on that. But at the same time, what we don't like is to lose focus. So it's really hard, for instance, to be the best in every single front-end framework, let's say, or every single cross-platform mobile development platform. So we prefer to stay focused on just a couple that and be the best. And be the best, and exactly. So right now they come to us because we are pretty solid with React, or in the past Angular. So we prefer to be very, very good at something, rather than not specialist on a lot of technologies at the same time.
So you started here in Uruguay, and you also mentioned that you have offices in Medellin. Do you have other offices, and also why going to Medellin?
Oh, okay, yeah. So we are incorporating in the States too. So we have a virtual office there. I mean, an entity, and also some WeWork space that we use when we travel to LA and New York. But our offices are in Montevideo in Uruguay, and the first branch we opened 2 years ago was Medellin in Colombia. Then we have some smaller groups working from other locations, but not in our offices. Why we went to Medellin, it was kind of an interesting story, because it was kind of a partnership with a client. So we had this client that was very important for us, and was outsourcing to Uruguay. And at some point, they realized that they were spending a lot of time traveling to Uruguay, and they were considering going with a vendor in a closer location, and we offered them the option. We had this in our mind, and we also realized that we needed to expand beyond borders at some point. And so we offered them to set up a branch and start with them as a first client, and they say, okay, let's do it. And
kind of like it was good to push you to make the
it
decision.
was, yeah, for sure. And in 2 months we opened the branch. We relocated our COO here from Uruguay with his family to Colombia, Medellin, and it was kind of the client pushing us, okay, if you say that you can do it, can you do it in 3 months? And so we ended up in Medellin, also because we did some analysis, obviously, that we were doing previously to this opportunity, and we considered Mexico, Costa Rica, or Colombia, and we fell in love with the culture, with the people, with the talent available there. And they host some of the biggest meetups, as you probably know, in JavaScript and other technologies. The universities are growing and are great, and the food is great, the weather is great. So we ended up in Medellin.
Yeah, Medellin is one of the fastest growing cities in IT, right?
It is, yeah, yes. Obviously, it's like the technology center in Colombia right now. It's getting a lot of support from the government. We actually got a lot of support from what they call Ruta N, which is an accelerator for companies. And so we fell in love with that, and we decided that we were able to replicate our culture there. And it's been a great path so far. We have right now getting into 20 or so people, and finding great talent there, and obviously getting more clients that are interested in Colombia because it's closer, because it's easier to get to, and the time zone wise also is central time, so it will align better with the West Coast client. So we are very happy about it, and the initial concerns about the image of the city and the country in the States, I think we are very happy that we went through with Medellin, because clients right now come to us and say, I want your Medellin office for my team. So we are very happy about it. But yeah, it was kind of these partnerships with the clients, and when you have this trust, it's something that you can do.
To give a picture of financial terms, on financial terms speaking, of how it would be the relationship if a United States company decides to work with UruIT. Do they have any tax exemptions? Do they have to pay additional something additional in the United States? Do you invoice from Uruguay, or do you invoice from your virtual company in the United States or from Colombia?
Yes, we invoice from almost everywhere, depending on the client. Some clients, I mean, in terms of taxes, they don't pay anything more because they are outsourcing to Uruguay or Colombia. Actually, we had this discussion with a client a couple of months ago that they were saying, oh, I need to pay 30% more. And we were able to, with our IT chamber, we were able to demonstrate that it was not the case. And that was mainly in some particular cases where they were outsourcing not only services but buying licenses and some tricky scenarios there. But when they outsource software development, they don't need to pay any extra taxes, which is good. However, sometimes they do have some legal requirements that they need to engage with a U.S. corporation, and depending on the procurement side of their business, we might need to invoice from the States. And for us, it's easier if the development is being done from Colombia to invoice from Colombia directly. And obviously, we have different taxes in our countries depending where we invoice from. But for them, I think it's very transparent that they will just engage with us as with another vendor, probably.
Good. So in 2017, UruIT was named Nearshore Company of the Year by Nearshore Americas during their Nexus event in the contest of the Illuminate Awards, which is kind of like the Oscars of LATAM outsourcing. You have many other awards. So what are these awards recognizing from UruIT in your view?
Yeah, so that was kind of a good celebration for the 10th anniversary to get that award, and we spent a great time there in California. I mean, we have been doing this for 10 years, so right now we have kind of a brand in Latin America, and obviously I think they do it because we get so many testimonials and happy clients speaking about our services. And at the end, I think that is what they consider when they award us. And we like them, to most of our clients support us with case studies and with interviews and referrals and everything. And I think that is that reflects what we deliver. So at the end, it's what they consider, and it's a great honor to get those type of awards. And yes, we got many in the past few years across the different verticals and the different technology that we do.
Good. So what industries are the strength of your company?
We work a lot with software as a service companies. We have been doing that since the very beginning, and we have learned a lot about that. So I wouldn't say it's about a particular industry, like we do have some clients coming from the commercial real estate, for instance, but we have clients in almost every industry: construction, market research, talent management, you name it. And but at the end, what we are very strong, I think, is building those type of software as a service, either way. And typically those are more like B2B solutions. So what I mean is that our clients will have a product that they sell to other clients, and might be corporations or global client or global companies. And we have learned a lot about how to build software as a service, multi-tenant applications that need to scale and need to be able to manage that workload. So we have been specializing on that, from companies that are starting with an MVP to companies that are supporting large software as a services or deploying to global clients with literally thousands of users across the globe. So I would say that is kind of our core expertise, and in particular, in the front end side of it. So how to build these, pixel perfect applications that will render in every device is what they typically, that is the most needed thing from our services.
Now, talking about strengths, what are the technologies that is UruIT best at?
Well, front end for sure, front end frameworks. Nowadays we do a lot of React work, but we were one of the first companies doing Angular at that time, and combined with backend systems that we do mostly .NET, 50% .NET, 50% Node.js. So we are going with this full JavaScript stack. And then we have other smaller groups or teams working with, as I say, Xamarin, machine learning, and but I would say front end is probably one of our core skills these days.
You said you are getting into machine learning. Is it also any additional thing from artificial intelligence, big data, bots? Are you getting into those others?
Well, we did a lot of, you can call it, data projects. From the early days, we were calling that not big data, but call it different data sources and big data sets. So we have been traditionally doing a lot of that type of work. Most of the applications we do, they handle millions and millions of records.
Wow.
And we went through different databases, cloud-based, on-prem. But in these days, obviously, data is everywhere. So most of the solutions requires some expertise on that. We do have only right now 2 data engineers, as we call it, and a couple of folks that are going through these machine learning projects. So it is not huge, but I anticipate that it will grow for sure. Right now, the machine learning type of work, what we are doing is related to video. So we don't have any chatbots right now in the project, but eventually we would be able to tackle those type of things.
And talking about machine learning, I just remember that not long ago, probably a couple weeks, I read in your blog, and yes, I'm a big fan of your blog. I read it quite often, that you publish a blog post about machine learning, and they were using, it's very technical, a very technical blog post about how they, through the text of the description of the stories on TFS, I think it was, they give an estimate of the story points based on the text, right?
It was a very funny one. Yeah, that was done by one of our tech leads. That is, he went through these PhDs in machine learning, and basically, as I said, he was looking to improve those skills, and we basically were supporting now with time and projects. And it was it is one of the recent ones. And we, by the way, we just went live with one that is an entire guide to machine learning that I encourage you to go through it, for to understand the basic concept behind it, some applications, what is a smart system, what type of business applications you could build on top of this type of technology. So I encourage to. We like to write and do these proof of concepts and then write about it to share with the community. So yes, that is the last piece of, and it was amazing. I mean, it was able to predict in most of the cases the size of the story. So you can apply to almost any. I remember the previous one was about predicting the performance in the World Soccer Cup, and using some video game data sets that were from FIFA. So yes, you can apply to almost everything right now. And we were pitching clients in the past few months. Every client we had, we were pitching them about how they could improve their applications or their business using a little bit of whatever predictive or machine learning in general techniques. So I think there is, as I said, a lot of room for growing in that sense, and every company will end up using it, and every vendor should be doing some kind of or some type of machine learning work if they want to stay relevant for the client.
All right. So let's move into the last section of today's podcast, which is about your product, Hurrah. Can you pitch us that product?
Yes. So Hurrah is basically a sales leaderboard tool that will help sales teams or outbound teams, as we call it, so the typical call center doing sales, to automate the metrics they take from CRM, and to promote this competitive environment, like a gamification type of thing, with leaderboards, contests, and celebrating with big events, as we call it. So that is basically what it is. So you will be rendering that into the TVs along the call center rooms, and you will be basically creating this environment in the office space.
Excellent. So before starting to record this podcast, you were telling me that the history of Hurrah was kind of exciting. So can you tell us the history of it?
Yeah, sure. I can try to summarize it, because it will be an entire podcast just for that. Okay. It was our first, I would say, successful product. We were, as a service company, you always dream with having products that you don't rely on just growing the staff, and you have this that you can IP that you can sell one time after time. So we tried a couple of mobile apps, games at that time, and to be honest, we didn't put the right focus, and at the end we ended up losing money basically. But with Hurrah, we decided to do it in a different way. So one of our co-founders in the spin-off company that was doing at that time CRM implementations found this problem about the user adoption of CRM systems. And learning about gamification, we decided that we could build something to tackle that problem. And this is how we approached this, and we say, okay, let's do it the right way this time. Let's try with an MVP, try to get some traction, and then look for investors. And basically, what we recommend to every client, we decided to do it. And we started with another product, not the Hurrah one, but it was a gamification platform for Dynamic CRM, Microsoft CRM in that moment. And we created this spin-off company, and we built a dedicated team and created the MVP in a couple of months. And we took a plane and we went to this Microsoft conference to showcase it and see what the market feeling about it. And wow, it was incredible. We were there with a booth and showcasing some proof of concept, and we were getting tons of people going through the booth and saying, wow, I want this. And we came back from the States, and I remember that we say, oh, we might have something here. And we decided to put more effort and money into this, and continue the development, improve it. And we got the support from the local innovation agency here to kind of scale it a little bit faster. And this is how we started with the product. And we decided to have dedicated marketing, dedicated salespeople, dedicated developers. That is very hard for us service companies, to do that, because at the end you will be basically compromising people that it could be working for a client. So we took that and very serious, and we had a great experience. At some point, we were focused on growing this Microsoft CRM base, and actually we were in discussions with Microsoft. At some point, they were interested in acquiring a similar product, but they decided to go with another competitor and offer it for free. So we everything, all our strategy changed from one day to the next one, and we were able to recover. We pivoted the product a little bit into this Hurrah sales automation tool, and it has been good so far. I mean, we are bootstrapping it right now and looking for a new round of investment, but we do count on our customer base with quite a few big names, as you mentioned. I think we have like 30 sports teams, because they use it mainly for selling tickets for the stadiums. Nice. And they have our tool in the sales rooms, motivating the people to call and close more deals and sell more tickets. So we found that niche, and obviously we have another 30 or so clients in other industries. But it's great to work with these big sports names, and it's very exciting for everyone there in the company.
So when you came back from the Microsoft conference, you said, yeah, we might have something interesting here. You were right, because you just mentioned it. You have like 30 sports teams.
Yes.
Just to name a few, the Chicago Bulls, Boston Celtics. So, but the question is, how did you get to them, or did they get to you? How did they found you? What they find most attractive, you think, about the platform?
Well, it was it was a combination of marketing and sales activities. So we did hire a person in the States to start with the sales activities there. And nowadays we also have someone working from UruIT doing sales. And then it was a lot about digital marketing. So we invested a lot in creating content to attract potential leads, and this is how we ended up. I remember at the very beginning we were also partnering with Microsoft and other CRM vendors. Nowadays we decided to open it to Salesforce and other CRM systems out there. So it was a combination of partnerships, direct sales, and digital marketing. And we all the time has this focus of providing them with user experience that is very appealing for them. I mean, they don't recognize they don't care if we are in Uruguay or if we are, as long as the quality of the service and
Which
the
is
support.
pretty exciting, right?
It is.
How
it's
a company
huge,
in Uruguay
yeah.
is selling to some of the big names in the United States.
It's really exciting, and I think it's something that we need to try to replicate. It's not impossible, and you can do it. Obviously, you need to consider how, as I say, we did hire some Americans to do the sales, and we have support teams. We have one in Canada. It will require a lot of work, and to provide this user journey and client experience that you need to compete with other vendors that are in the market and that are getting millions of dollars in investment. And at the same time, our clients are used to engage with software as a service products, and you need to provide a similar experience. So we put a lot of effort into that, and also the good thing about us is that we know how to build software, and so we have been using that to create this experience, and it's an advantage that we have. But the marketing and sales, I think, is a tricky thing for Uruguayan companies, because you need to overcome that difficulty that we are so far away in terms geographically, at least.
In which year did you started this product?
We started like 4 years ago, but then we started, as I say, with another product that we had to pivot into this. This was a feature of the original product, actually, and we identified that it could be a selling product, and it ended up being our core product. And so right now, we are very excited about how to do this, scale this sales process now that we have so many names in the portfolio, and at the same time raise some more money to do it faster, because competitors are growing, and we need to face that competition.
Right. And besides these big names in the NBA, do you also have teams in other sports leagues?
Oh yes, we have in NFL. We have even some soccer teams from the UK. So and hockey. So
nice.
We have.
I love hockey.
Yeah, in almost every that's good. In almost every sports. And then we have others. Other clients in other industries, from contact centers, staffing companies. So it's the product itself can apply to almost every industry.
You said you are looking for investment. Do you only look for investment from Uruguay investors, or
no? Actually,
worldwide?
We plan to. Yeah, actually, we need more money than what you can get right now in Uruguay. It's been a challenge. Yeah, we had to pitch a lot of investors in the past year, but as I said, our competitors are raising millions, and we are right now starting to look at some accelerators in the States, and also start pitching some, starting with some friends and connections that we have from our services business, to see what we could do in the States in terms of raising money. It's going to be an entire journey, and Ali, my business partner, will be focused on that while I help with the sales processes.
If someone from our audience or listeners are interested in UruIT's services or the product Hurrah, how could they get in touch with you?
Well, they can reach out to our website, UruIT.com, so UruIT.com. And in the case of the Hurrah product, is CRMgamify.com.
Good. I will leave the links and probably your phone numbers of the company in the show notes too. Any final, talking about outsourcing, any final recommendations would you like to make to a company thinking about outsourcing?
I would say that they need to try Latin American outsourcing, and we need to do more, invest more in marketing our countries and what we could offer, because I think it is still a lot of kind of untapped market for the outsourcing in most of the US companies. So I would encourage them to find a good partner and in a good location and give it a try.
Thanks everyone for listening to the Kaizen podcast. This podcast has been brought to you by Kaizen Softworks. Check us out at kcsoftworks.com.